Hello everyone, I'm Päivi, a working artist, and I live in Finland. And this video is a bit different than many of the previous ones because in this video I want to talk more freely and I want to talk about my enthusiasm about colored pencils. The idea for this video came from knitting video blogs, knitting podcasts, where a person just shows what she has knitted and all the projects, and then there are finished projects, then there are projects that are in progress, and then there are some purchases and such. So it has a clear structure and they are long, and I watch these videos almost every evening because I love knitting too. It's my hobby, and always when I watch those I think that we should have a similar kind of thing for colored pencils. For those who really love to color and love to color freely, which is my thing, that you don't always follow the outlines or a photo, but just color freely. I thought that I want to make this kind of video where I show my recent pieces and show some inspiration, but this is more like rambling too. So if you don't like long videos, maybe the previous videos are more for you. But now I assume that you will pick your pencils and color something and listen to me while you're coloring. One of the things I definitely want to show you is my colored pencil diary. I call this diary even if it doesn't have any writing. It's an Archer and Olive notebook that I've shown in the previous videos too. But I thought that I show some of the pieces that I've made recently and talk a little bit about them. Now, I blog weekly. So it's not just always videos. I write on my blog at www.peonyandparakeet.com, and some of the projects that I show here are explained more in detail in my blog with several photos and all kinds of inspiration. So if you are a new viewer, then you might want to go to www.peonyandparakeet.com and subscribe to my weekly emails so that you get a notification. You actually get a real email letter, where I present the weekly blog post, and then you can click the link and read the blog post and see all the pretty pictures. So last time when I recorded, I made a quick free coloring project. You can see this in my previous video. And after that I've made some new spreads too, like this one. I looked at this previous spread and I really like it. I think it's so sweet. So I created a new one that has more hearts. I don't always plan a color scheme when I'm coloring freely, because I also paint in oil, and that's my main work. I often plan the palette much more carefully, but when I'm coloring I want to be free and want to be playful, so the color choices are not always so perfect. Actually, what I've done recently is that I've organized my pencils again. I keep my pencils in these kind of plastic boxes, and I love how I can open the boxes and how I can see the pencils directly. And and just recently I often organize the order of the pencils, which is a bit pathetic, I know, but I enjoy touching the pencils. And I have several brands in one box, and I have different boxes for different colors. So this is my yellow box. I've recently organized these pencils by length. I think this is quite new thing. To organize the pencils by length. What do you achieve by organizing the pencils by length? I come closer so that you can see. When I organize my pencils by length, I always find these kinds of quite short pencils. And I like to use shorties first. I think it's the same with yarn and with pencils that I do. I often use leftover yarns and such, and that's often more enjoyable than always buying new ones. So I'm picking these leftover pencils and using those. I also like the randomness that when I grab a pencil, it's all random, not so specific. So you see, I have short pencils so that I can easily grab them on the front, and colors organized by length. I like the sense of satisfaction that comes when you've used up something. So that's one motivation for me for coloring. If you want to be inspired of creating, you need to find different kind of dimensions in your art. And one dimension is definitely how you organize and treat your supplies. At least for me, that dimension is really important. So this is just leftover colors and hearts, and you know, there's nothing really innovative or creative about hearts. Very simple, basic shape. But that's another aspect that I like to cherish and keep my coloring enthusiasm going on, is to, you know, not always find something revolutionary, but start from small ideas and just enjoy coloring and enjoy working with colors. I like to think that pencils are my friends, and that when I color, I get creative energy to do bigger projects. And then here's another one, which is more illustrative. I like this aspect of colored pencils to creating illustrations. But for me, colored pencils and working only with outlines or with photos is not the thing. Actually, I don't usually use photos at all. So I don't use any references, and I don't use so much outlines either. This is the topic I want to talk about. When you're a child, usually you get a set of colored pencils. And then when you grow up, there seem to be these two ways to use them. The first way is to buy a coloring book and then follow those outlines and color inside those outlines. And then the second way is to grab a photograph and then accurately replicate it. I think there's something between that seems to be non-existent, and that's what I want to bring up with these videos of mine, that you can color more freely. If this kind of project looks too challenging, drawing freely from imagination and drawing people and butterflies and such, you can just color more freely. For example, in this spread I've colored much more freely, and there's not so much actual elements at all. It's like a stream of colors. But it doesn't even have to be like that. I also like to sew, and my thing is quilting, but I try to be better at sewing clothes. So I have some boutique magazines, some knitting boutique magazines like Line, which is a Finnish magazine, or Tauko, another Finnish magazine. This is a sewing magazine. And you know, one day I was browsing this and I thought that I should really dive deeper into the articles that this has, not only patterns. And then I thought that, oh, well, if I try to read an article, you know, lots of small letters. I'm a very visual person. Sometimes reading is too hard. I know it's silly. I write weekly and I love creative writing, but sometimes reading is too much for me. So I thought that maybe I could concentrate more if I would pick my pencils with me and let them keep me company while I'm reading. I colored all the little squares that this elegant spread had. Not so elegant perhaps anymore, but you know, when many art journals, they cut images from magazines and such. You don't have to cut images because they are there. And then there's the space for coloring. And actually, when I browsed this magazine, I saw so many opportunities for coloring. There are actually line drawings as well. And lots of free space that I can color. And there are some lovely pictures of mushrooms. And even some color charts as well. So a few years ago, there was this advert in Finnish television that was about a football league, and the idea of the advert was that the person who was in the advert looked at the world like it would be a continuous football game, and they said that the world is different in the eyes of a football fan. For example, they showed how this man just casually hurt his knee, and then he started shouting and, you know, threw himself on the floor and such, like a football player who exaggerates what has happened. And this has been in my mind lately, that the world is different when you have colored pencils. The colored pencils can really color your world, and there are coloring opportunities everywhere, in your planner, in your shopping lists, magazines. Paper is everywhere and you can color anything. It doesn't only have to be illustrations and on a thick and proper paper, and it's actually surprising how good quality paper, for example, this kind of boutique magazines have, and they're really wonderful to color. So, world is different in the eyes of the owner of colored pencils. Then one project that I made recently, and I blogged about it too, is that I drew a coloring page myself. And in the blog post I show how I drew this in phases, so that I started from a really clumsy drawing and then ended up with this one, which is a bit more elegant. But then, of course, as colorers know, the drawing looks so much more alive and dimensional when you color it. So this is my own illustration that I've scanned and then printed on a different colored paper. Often my projects, as you know, are just very humble and simple, and I store them in these kind of little boxes. So as a child I collected glossy die-cut pieces, scrap reliefs they are called, I think. So if I've painted a big painting, then when I go to my colored pencils, the result can be something like this. Just a little fruit to my box. I call these boxes of joy, and I sometimes use them for collages, but often I just play with them. I have several. I organize these a bit by size, and sometimes I just mix and match and have fun with that. I have online classes and I often make this kind of small projects as at least a part of the class, but now I thought that my next class will be only focused on making these. Here's one project that I colored recently, an angel. It's one of my favorites. It reminds me of old scrap reliefs that I had when I was a child. In the beginning of this video I showed how I organized my colored pencils by length and talk about how I use leftovers often. I also have leftovers of papers, so small scraps, because you know, when you do things like this, you don't need a lot of paper, so it's just easy to have all kinds of little scraps, and I have made a box for them. Many times I've thought that maybe I should only show one side of me, and that's the fine art side. So of course that's a much more sort of deeper and profound side, and that's what I feel I'm really meant to do. But then when I spent a day or two in the fine art world every week, I notice how my creative energy goes down, and I need this kind of play to keep myself creative and to bring my best to the canvas. I've also thought about how many times people think that to paint, how do they say, you have a solid piece of work. That's what I've heard, a solid. What I'm trying to say that even if it's the opposite for this kind of diverse play, this kind of diversity actually enables me to do that. If you omit play from the equation of art, I think that many times the result is not art. When you replicate a photo, for example, I value it as a craft, but I don't think it's art in that sense that it would be unique and playful and creative. And if we only color inside the outlines, there's still something free that wants to come up. And I think that this freedom and playfulness is really important part of creating art. And why should we prevent our colored pencils not to be free and not to be playful? And why should we prevent ourselves not to be free and not to be playful? It doesn't mean that the techniques don't matter. Of course it matters to the outcome, but at the same time you can also be free and playful. And I think that many times artists struggle with loosening up. For me, when I open the box of joy, I get so many ideas, and I feel how my thoughts start to expand. I sometimes even can see or visualize it, so that something that is just closed and narrow here in my head, that comes out and forms big ellipses around me, and then I feel the creative flow, even if I'm not creating. So I think that the idea is to find new routes for your thoughts and expand the ideas, not to narrow down. And yeah, that's the joy that I feel about art, and that's the joy that I want to spread. I also thought that in the end of this video I could show some of the recent paintings that I've finished. This piece is called The Spring of Dreams, Unelmien kevät. And even if it's fall in Finland, I wanted to paint a piece that reminds me of spring and is dreamy and romantic. This actually uses colors that I don't pick so often, so purples and pale yellows. And then I show a couple of bigger paintings that I've made. They are so big that I put pictures here. hope this video inspired you to pick your pencils and start coloring. And my artist website is paivieerola.com. I put it in writing here. And you can find a link to www.peonyandparakeet.com there too. So I have a gallery of my oil paintings, and then the other side, Peony and Parakeet, is dedicated to all kind of playfulness and for my blog and for my online classes. I hope you visit, and I hope you enjoy all the inspiration that is there. Let me know if you like these kind of longer episodes, and let me know what you would prefer, the shorter, more to the point episode, or these kind of rambling longer episodes. I would be really interested to hear what you think, and it would be really helpful. Thank you.